All right, welcome to the Pitch Stack Podcast, Episode 2. I am Douglas DeYoung, joined by Mr. Matt Rodriguez, as always. Matt,
Hey,
how
yo.
are you today?
I'm good. I'm doing all right.
All right. So I'm so excited to talk about some flesh and blood. And something I like to do, before I get on with my day is I like to open the mail.
Ooh, mail.
A little bit of mail. Yeah, we've got some mail. So people have some viewer questions. And this first one comes from Mr. Hasiel Diaz. Hasiel asks, who's your favorite hero for this upcoming skirmish season? And, Hasiel, I've got great news for you. That's basically what this whole episode's going to be. So you're going to get one of the most thorough answers of all time.
Lucky you.
Look at that. And then we have another question here from Mr. Chris B, Mr. Bromley. He asked what kind of beard oil I use. I don't. I did try this Viking oil stuff once, but I feel like I don't have enough facial hair to maintain the viscosity of an oil. So I don't know. Maybe it just looks incredibly shiny under the lights of certain LGSs. What about you, Mr. Rodriguez? You've got a pretty serious beard there. Do you run a beard oil?
It's new for me. And actually I do have one. I don't use it that much because I'm not like super big on keeping it super neat and stuff. But I have one. I don't know what brand it is. It's like Citron and Hardwood or something like that. I know that's the scent.
Nice.
But I don't know the brand. Couldn't tell you.
Oh, right on. Well, this is very encouraging. We already have viewer questions. We've only put out one episode. It's only a matter of time before we have to get a P.O. box and stop talking about where we live.
That'll be great.
That's
exciting for the future.
All right. So we'll play that intro music and then we'll get into some flesh and blood.
You're listening to the Pitch Stack Podcast.
All right. And we're back from the intro. Never gets old. So Matt, actually, what's interesting is you and I attend a lot of the same armories, but this week there was no crossover between our armory attendance. So how did your armories go this week?
I went to Hey Want to Play on Saturday, essentially for an armory, and that was yesterday, and it was good. It was just 4 people, sadly, though. Got to play a little Viscerai, nothing out of the ordinary. Played some reps in the Kano, played a little bit of Old Tim reps and Dash. That was the field for the day.
Oh,
cool stuff.
I could have showed up with Prism.
Oh yeah, you could have actually, not played against Starvo for sure. Yeah, no Starvo at armories. We have a little bit more dignity than that.
Well, I feel like it's one of those decks you don't really need to practice all that much, Like, obviously, there's a certain level, but I think, once you've achieved it, there aren't that many really weird interactions in the deck. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of just, not literally smash with big tree, but the whole deck is just smashing with big tree after big tree.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're more like big hammer or big fists, usually.
Big Oakenold.
Yeah, or that. He'll stand at you menacingly for 11.
So my LGS, and I've been so annoying to the owners and managers of my local LGS at Chaos Gamer Lounge. I apologize to them, but I've been trying to get them to do flesh and blood events for, I don't know, a year. I've been so annoying about it. I walked them through ordering armory kits and everything. We finally started firing them about a month ago. And in our third armory ever, we fired a full 8-person Monarch draft. And so I felt like I was living the dream. It was phenomenal. I went 1 and 2 on Prism because I forced Prism. But what was I supposed to do? I opened 2 Genesis, or Genesi, if you will. And I was gonna play Aura Prism, and it turns out that Aura Prism doesn't translate very well to playing against Levia. I learned, so that wasn't great. But it was pretty cool to see like an actual flesh and blood community starting to develop in my LGS, which has always been like a Wizards of the Coast shop. It's always been Magic and Pokemon, and I even got like a few Magic players like, what's going on over there? What is that? What's that card game? That looks really fun. They banned Luris and now everything's a mess. It's like, is that something I can get into? Is it still cheap? And the answer to the last question is no, but everything else was a yes. And so I don't know. It's really cool to see this start to turn around in South Florida, South Florida, where we both live, has always been a hotbed of trading card games. I don't know why.
Agree. Definitely agree.
And it's weird to see Flesh and Blood finally get a foot down in this in our area with, like LGSs are starting to ask questions. They're starting to host events. I mean, there's a skirmish firing off in Miami next week at an LGS that neither of us really ever go to because it's really far and it's really cool. It's happening. And I feel like we're starting to turn a corner with Flesh and Blood where like maybe I can take a week off and not show up to an armory and it'll still fire,
Oh yeah, 100%. And I mean, at least, with me and my work and stuff, I usually have like the big days off, like, the ones that people usually go to play at, like Fridays and Saturdays. And I mean, I've usually been all right to get like days off, but sometimes it's just not been consistent. So I've been kind of like tempering, how often I go out to play, especially with like the drives, because I only really have one local game store. And then every other store is like an hour or 40 minutes away from me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because you're up north. It's a bit isolated. So I don't know. We're going to see it spread. It's going to be great. So let's see. We'll do a little recap of what we were talking about last week, which is we were both watching The Calling Indianapolis.
Oh yeah.
And so in a great celebration for myself, Prism made it to the finals but didn't win, which is great because I'm very heavily invested into Prism futures. So the Prism player actually missed a tunic counter at the end, which ended up costing him the game to start.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I know. Well, in a weird way, maybe he did it on purpose, so that way Prism doesn't get retired.
That's the working theory. Take a guess as to how many living legend points Prism has, and she's in second place, mind you.
She's got to be a little over 500 at this point.
Ooh, good guess. She had 560. How many do you think Bravo Star of the show? Yeah. How many do you think Bravo Star of the show has now?
Like 999.
Ooh, really close. No, 814.
Holy cow.
Yeah, that's incredible.
So he's just done after this pro tour.
Yeah, he's done. Last time I checked, it was like not even a month ago. Like it was like a week, maybe 2 weeks ago at like most. It was like 5 something. He had just passed Shane.
Crazy.
He went up to like 6, I think. Like he was bordering 6, and then now he's like at 800. Like all these ProQuest like results are coming in, and yeah.
Well, especially we know we're not getting any new adult heroes until I believe they have timed that ProQuest to be right before the new set drops, is what they were saying.
Really, I thought it was like right when it drops, or like
maybe it is the same day. Or yeah, that'll be the pre. Well, so I mean, either way, I mean, there's not going to be any new adult heroes for this pro tour.
Yeah.
So we could very well be looking at the end of Starvo in just a little under 2 months here. That's crazy.
I feel like they may have either one of two things. Obviously, if you look at the past and how they've had to ban some cards suddenly and errata some things and say, oh, we made mistakes. Very likely it could have just made a mistake here. He could have just been in development and they were like, full send, just send it out there. Just let this happen. Or they could have just done it as kind of like an experiment to see like, all right, let's see what happens when we make our first, like, when we get our first hero to living legend, let's just push this character as much as possible, and let's see what happens when we living legend a hero. Let's see what it looks like.
So I actually completely agree that they are using this to test the living legend system. Obviously conspiracy theory, but it makes sense when you look at Starvo's card pool, because what happens is if Starvo hits living legend, none of his cards become obsolete. They all get inherited by either Oldhim or Briar or regular Bravo. There's no card that's specifically attached to Starvo or is only playable with Starvo. So it's kind of like a failsafe where it doesn't make any cards useless if he happens to hit living legend.
That's quite the theory, actually.
That said, trade your Crown of Seeds now.
Trade it to me. I will take your Crown of Seeds. I'll give you. Let's do a discount so you don't lose too much money.
I will buy Crown of Seeds at 50% of asking price. Just a alpha investment style. But that is interesting.
100% agree. The idea that, let's say tomorrow, like Shane, maybe that's not a great example. Say a vanilla, right? A vanilla hero class got the living legend status, say Viserai, right?
Yeah.
What happens to the card pool, right? Now all of those cards, a lot of those cards are just not very useful. I mean, Morgentide and any of those other heroes is like terrible, right? You can't even play it unless somehow they figure out a way to fill their deck with Rune Chant generation, which is not difficult, but it just doesn't really work out for either of those heroes. Shane wants to play a lot of things out of his Banner Stone, so he didn't have space for that. Briar wants to play elemental cards as well.
Yeah,
I mean, or generics, but
But the card pool is still usable, I think. So Viserai, I think, is actually one of the safer heroes in terms of like buying into, because really you're only missing out on like Become the Arknight, is one of the cards that would get retired with him. But what's interesting is like, let's say I would say like the worst one for them to hit living legend status would be Prism. Because Prism doesn't even have a young hero. Like, the young hero version of Prism is just Prism. There's no other illusionists in the game whatsoever.
I do feel like maybe that's like they may print out a new illusionist in the next maybe 2 sets. Maybe not the next set, but the set coming out. Just because Prism, where she's at now, is a place where, like, say Starvo disappears, and like old Bravo kind of hits the forefront. Oldhim does. She has a better chance against those decks, and she's going to start racking up living legend points for sure.
Absolutely.
Especially with the new builds with auras.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's such a ridiculous card and action point advantage with Prism's innate go again, the amount of permanence you can have on the field, the fact that you can regenerate your strength with Prism, which no other hero really has. You kind of exhaust yourself throughout the game, which is the game design, but Prism can actually take a couple of hits and then regenerate those auras and strength. And I think that might be Prism's unique, like why the deck is so good is because innately she regenerates. So hopefully they print some heroes that are counters to Prism in the new set. Hopefully not too good.
Well, I thought we were going to
great.
I think I remember hearing that we were going to Savage Lands for the next set.
Ooh,
yeah, a lot of big.
Maybe they'll finally declare them orcs.
I did read somewhere they are referred to as brutes. So the brute class is technically the race of brutes.
But also,
weird.
Levia can be a brute, and she's like a quiet house servant / tentacle monster.
Well, yeah, she can't like swap between them, right? She got like altered.
No, yeah, I think she's permanent tentacle monster.
But she's not like a brute, She's not like a Savage Lands brute. She's just a brute for the sake of like just being a monster,
Yeah, I think that's fair. Huh. Well, James, we're going to need you to clarify this. We're going to need you to clarify the orc versus brute situation. We understand why you're avoiding the orcs, which orcs have a long and storied history of being a bizarre mythical creature that just happened to enter the entire collective unconscious with Lord of the Rings and are now in every single fantasy setting except for this one. So we'll get there. Oh, so living legend points. When we take a look at classic constructed, this is a huge issue, but where it's not a big issue is with Blitz. And I think, I think this is because there haven't been a lot of really big Blitz events. I don't really foresee there being any in the future. At some point, I do think this game will add a highly competitive Blitz best of 3.
Well, I think skirmish counts for living legend. I think all those stats are reported, and additionally, the battle hardened events that are Blitz are going to be counted for that as well. And then currently, there's a lot of I don't know how recently they because skirmish season hasn't really kicked off, but right now Ira is right now the number 1 living legend point holder. And I believe it's 500 for Blitz, right? To be retired. 500
for Blitz. And
so she's halfway there. And Dorinthia is second, and then Briar third. But Kasai's all the way down there. So she's probably going to start creeping up after skirmish results come through.
Yeah, I think Kasai has 3 right now. So that's obviously going to... Oh, yeah. Okay. So the list I'm looking at is a little out of date then. So Kasai was always a significantly worse... not significantly, but Kasai was always just slightly worse Dorinthia, where you're trading out Dory specialization cards in exchange for cash-ins to try and get card advantage in 1 or 2 turns. But now Kasai has her own specializations. She has all sorts of ways to generate copper tokens. They made the huge mistake of printing Blade Runner, which is, in my opinion, one of the most busted cards they have printed anytime soon. And
certainly feels like it enables that deck to just kind of do whatever the hell it wants at any time. Running 9 of them is kind of just so I'm attacking with my weapons twice all the time.
Exactly.
And they're going to get big.
And then you mix that with Glint of Quicksilver, which is going to give you is it Glint of Quicksilver? I do think it is. Which is going to give you go again on top of card advantage against your opponent. And that's why, in a very harsh, quick segue into our next segment, and to answer your question, Hasiel, all of 20 minutes later, my pick and favorite hero going into this skirmish season is Kasai. Kasai is just on another level right now. Matt, I know you've mentioned to me that you haven't played a lot of Blitz, but do you have a favorite Blitz deck right now?
So the Blitz deck I find the most fun is Data Doll. But do I think I'll play Data Doll at skirmish? Probably not. I played a lot of Vis, and Vis right now is really, slated to perform extremely well. He's got the fridge of equipment to block, and that's kind of what you need right now in Blitz to give you free turns of 5-card hands, and kind of turn the tide of your opponent. And right now, the top 3 heroes can do that the best, and that's why they're there. Kasai and her boots blocking forever, and Vis and his potential block for 7, depending on the kind of turn it is. He's really good. But yeah, I'll more than likely end up playing Viserai for any skirmish season I play, any skirmish event. But I do find Data Doll a lot of fun to play, and maybe I'll give her a try, depending if I win my first one. Which I don't really, I don't have no delusions about winning any of these, but I'd like to definitely give it the best try I can.
Yeah, I mean, so Data Doll is really fun, but I think Data Doll has 2 huge issues. The first being, in terms of obviously it's very fun to play, but in terms of the competitive issues with Data Doll and why I think Data Doll needs to be fixed a little bit if LSS ever wants her to be usable, is the 3 intelligence is just absolutely an insane hit. Especially in a format like Blitz is all aggro. There is no control deck in Blitz. There's no mid-range deck in Blitz. It is all aggro. Go for it. You could kind of argue that Viserai is kind of a mid-range deck because you kind of buy a couple turns to go for that OTK. But everything else is just full speed, kick the crap out of everyone as fast as possible. And not only does Data Doll have that intellect penalty where you can only have 3 cards, Data Doll has one of the largest problems in the game, which is the vast majority of her deck is item cards, and item cards can't defend. So a lot of the time with Data Doll, you're just kind of taking huge hits. And the way that Kasai, Benji, Dory, Viserai, I mean, even Rhinar or even KO to a lesser extent are built right now. You're just not going to survive to turn 3.
You just die to Bolt. You just die to Benji. Like you can't stop his spring tiding. Like you block with your 4, like your skull cap and your chest, and then he just goes over for 1 damage on Razor Reflex, right? And that's it.
Yeah,
you lost the game. And then, he draws 4 cards or whatever it is. And against Kasai, it's just incredible the amount of value she'll just get out of you not blocking, and the damage too. It's near pretty unwinnable. I haven't really played it all that much. I played a little bit, actually, more Viserai recently over her in Blitz, and Viserai performs really well, and especially into Kasai. I've had a couple bad games where Blood of the Hand resolves, and she kind of just kicks my butt. But Viserai can actually pull in a lot of damage with the fewest cards possible.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I've been messing around with my Kasai list, and I actually am about to drop cash-ins, which is interesting because that was kind of her signature card in the beginning. And it's interesting. The whole deck is it's coming together. It's getting I don't know. It's so good, especially against Benji, because you don't get baited into blocking the needles. You can continually block for 1 with Valiant Dynamo. And I don't know. I mean, I think I've definitely have a really rough matchup against Rhinar. Viserai is about 50-50. It just depends on the Viserai player. And so I don't know. It's interesting. That said, though, there is kind of a rogue deck that I like a lot for this upcoming skirmish season. And I know it's kind of a meme, but OTK Runeblade Shyana is actually not a bad deck. It's really interesting.
What does that even look like?
So you combine, you run you're running Become the Arc Knight. You're running just every single Runeblade specialization card.
So who is the best hero to play against for the best odds? Like Viserai, if you play against Viserai, do you kind of just like
Yeah, I mean, certainly playing against the Viserai or a Briar is really good because you get to copy their abilities. Mm-hmm. But really the main goal and what you want to do with this OTK Shyana build is you kind of the key is to use a combination of Force of Nature, Become the Arc Knight, and then oh gosh, I always forget what chain specialization is called. Soul Reaping. So you're using a combination of those 3 to just get off an absolutely massive attack, and then you add in the I Respect cards, the Whirling Mist Blossoms, because that card's insane. Where if it's the 2nd or higher chain link in a row to hit, you draw 2 cards. It's really the best card in those starter decks. And then on top of that, you're adding E-Strikes. It very much plays like a Briar deck, but then you get the ability of adding in Become the Arc Knight. So that way you can specifically search for, things like Whirling Mist Blossom or even Force of Nature. One of the keys with Force of Nature is you're just going to keep chaining those together, and then you can search your deck for them, which is really disgusting. And don't get me wrong, the deck it's not tier 1, it's not S tier, but I think it's a lot better than people think it is. I might actually put it together just so I can test it and be like, I'm stupid.
Force of Nature is a specialization?
Yeah. Force of Nature is a Briar specialization card. And that's really the crux of the deck is Force of Nature. And then, you're obviously, the key is to OTK with like stubby hammerers where you just destroy it. And then all attack action cards with 3 or less base power. And then they get +1. And really, you can just keep chaining, you can keep chaining stuff together off Whirling Mist Blossom and Force of Nature and then searching for them. It gets really crazy.
Yeah, it sounds crazy.
A lot of the other stuff in the deck is attack reacts, like Razor Reflex. And it gets real weird. Gets real weird.
Wow, Shiana, OTK. I don't know if I would have ever expected to hear those 2 words spoken at once, but
right.
That's interesting. I always wondered about Shiana actually being like, how would that deck look, But that sounds actually like a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it kind of makes sense, right? Like they keep accidentally printing overpowered Runeblade cards and then having to nerf one card to hurt each Runeblade. But when their powers combine,
Force of Nature in one deck alongside Become the Arknight and Soul Reaping.
Little Shiana Runeblade Voltron. It's a real thing.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and so Shiana was one of the first cards that was one of the first expensive cards I wanted to buy because I like to be annoying. And so trying to build around that deck is something I've been trying to do for a while. And it finally, I've seen these lists show up with aggro Shiana. They look pretty great. However, this leads into a great question. So when we look at this top tier of Dory, Kasai, Briar, Benji, even Viserai, OTK, Reinhardt, Kaio, where you're trying to hit for 25 each turn, is Blitz getting a little too aggressive, or do you think that means it's just working as intended?
I think Blitz is right now, I don't know. It feels like it's way too aggressive. I mean, even Oldhim, who's top tier right now, is running E-strikes and just is so aggressive. I played a game with, I just practiced. I played a game with Oldhim, and I was turn 1. I had a blue and Awakening, and I was playing against Benji, which I mean would just be normally just a good match no matter what. But I went down I just took all the damage, went down to 10. And I was like, okay, Awakening, go grab Pulverize, and put that in my hand. 10 Seismic Surges, and then I go, okay, turn 1, play Tear Asunder, Pulverize for 15 Dominate, and what do you do? I don't know. Yeah. Awakening's just such a dumb card.
Well, especially I feel Awakening's disgusting. It's no matter where you're at. Obviously, it's a little bit weaker in Blitz, but it's not that bad,
It still makes a lot of Seismic Surges. It's very valuable with doing that.
Yeah. And I feel like Guardian benefits a lot from the Blitz. It's unfortunate their decks are slow, but they benefit a lot from the sideboarding rules of the Blitz format because you already want to drag so much equipment with you everywhere with Guardian. Mm-hmm. And being able to have that default, you have 11 equipment slots, regardless of how the rest of your deck's constructed in Blitz. I think that helps a lot. Although, to be fair, for the most part, it's about 7 equipment slots. Because everybody's running a full set of Null Rune.
Yeah, or their staple equipments and stuff. What would you think you change about the Blitz format in terms of deck construction, right? So sideboarding, right? Maybe deck size. Do you think you would change something about that? Do you think you would add more sideboard slots for cards? Or do you think that a 40 card deck should be enough and then there should be more or fewer equipment slots?
It's obviously a giant change to the format, but I think and I hate to say this, I think I make Blitz a little bit closer to Magic. I think I make it 61 card, present a deck of 40, and then you sideboard in between games and make it best of 3. I think that's how they're going to make it more competitive because it just...
Well, do you mean including sideboard playable cards, actions and cards for your deck, or do you...
Yeah, I think equipment? So. I think we go to 61 including equipment. So that way it
Interesting.
opens up 10 slots for you to.
I like
move
that. That's
in and out.
actually pretty good. That sounds like a great format. Wow. Yeah. I
Yeah, and
would
then it's
enjoy that
best
a
of
lot.
3, so it's a little bit quicker. You can kind of play around your opponent because, like, I mean, right now, like, because Blitz is the entry point into the game for so many players. You know, you put together your Blitz deck based on your favorite hero. You show up to your first event, you get stomped in 10 minutes, and then you got to sit around and wait for your next match. And then that just keeps happening over and over again. And it feels like there's nothing you can do about it. So maybe your best of 3 kind of smooths out that new player experience. So I don't know. It is interesting, though, because I do think Blitz needs a couple tweaks to become a serious format. It is a very good format, but I think it's not serious yet.
And I think that's part of like what not drives me away, but like what pulls me more to CC, right? It is best of 1, but it does feel like there's so much more going on in the 50 minutes that you're playing.
Yeah.
Right. And then you have the sideboard ability to sideboard between your match, right? You decide right before you play, after you roll your dice. And it just feels like more competitive. But Blitz is kind of just like, okay, well, you have the equipment for this matchup or you don't, and you just run the game as it is, right? And now you're forced to end up like jamming defense reactions into your main deck when you don't want them.
Yeah.
And other pieces that you maybe don't want. Like for example, you just were discussing maybe now running captions because they weren't always that great in some of your matchups. But now if the Blitz format was the way you described it, you would be able to run them in the main board and then have your sideboard option on the side. And you would be able to side those in and out depending on your matchup, where you're like, oh, I don't feel like I'll be able to get as many hits in or too much copper, or I don't want the 2 block in my deck. I don't want the yellow pitch in my deck. I want a blue, and you'll have those options in your sideboard. And I feel like that's
absolutely.
really that'll actually really make the Blitz format healthier. And I think you can potentially even move to like best of 3. But the problem there is that Blitz matches are already 30 minutes. And if you have 3 matches both going to time, you end up having an hour and a half round. So maybe best of 3 isn't the right play, but having that smaller deck, similar play style to CC, where you sideboard before playing, could be the right direction to take the format.
Absolutely. I think that's 100% correct. So usually I like to keep these things on the down low, but I want to talk about a card in Blitz right now that may be completely underrated, may be sitting in your bulk box, but has a place in every single Blitz deck this upcoming skirmish season. And what I think is the number 1 card you should have in your list of 51, and that's Spellfray Cloak.
Actually, I agree. I think it's a good card. Spellfray in general are good. Spellfray is
just
good.
Because, mana is such a premium. And dropping a card out of your hand to prevent 1 arcane damage, especially if it's going to save you the game, and being able to turn around next turn, especially on a very aggressive deck like Briar or Kasai or Benji, having that Spellfray Cloak where you can just sack it to prevent 1 arcane damage, that is awesome. That works so well. And so that for me is my sleeper. Do you have a sleeper card?
Well, I'd like to just also point out, you should be, depending on your deck, right? I think what you should do is play Null Rune alongside the same slot as some of your Spellfray items. And then depending on whether you're going first or second, determines whether you have Null Rune or you have Spellfray. If you're going second, I would keep the Null Rune so you can still pitch and prevent damage. Or if you're going first, you want to keep the Spellfray so you can be on the aggressive and still block Kano damage when they play on your turn or they play on their turn. So you don't have to pitch anything for your next second turn. So you're playing Bolton, where he just does super, super resource starved. You could just play Spellfray instead of playing Null Rune if you're on the play. You just start swinging through, hitting them with damage. They'll block. They'll do whatever they need to do. Then on their turn, they try to come in for damage. You can spell void 1 or 2 or 3, depending on what you have set up. And then next turn, just be like, okay, here's lethal, essentially.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And
So
without having to pitch any mana at all or resource,
Yeah. And it's such a swing. And so I don't know. Yeah, Spellfray 100% is my choice.
Well, sleeper cards. What do I think? That's a tough choice. I don't know if I really gave it that much thought. Well, as a Runeblade player, maybe I don't know if it's so much of a sleeper. I think they play it in their decks, but just like you said, everything's so resource intensive. They want to keep their cards in their hands. Making them discard is going to be very rough. But so I would say probably something like Consuming Volition or Reek of Corruption. Like those cards are great. You need to run them. Or just consuming, depending on how you want your curve to be like. If you think you can reliably deal that arcane damage or you can reliably make that aura, they're going to be forced into blocking that, which makes it easier for you to get through with a meet and greet or a dread triptych or something, because they're going to try to block that Consuming Volition. You can punish them, or you can follow up a larger attack with a Consuming Volition where they have fewer cards in hand to block with.
Yeah.
And really punish them for blocking. Yeah. I don't know. It's not something I've given a lot of thought of. I think what people need to look at a little bit more are those amulets and talismans. There's a lot of stuff there that haven't really been considered for a lot of decks. I think I saw a Benji list that had an Amulet of Assertiveness, and if you have an attack in your arsenal, that could be really good. You can just kind of fire off your attack. You still have 4 cards in hand, and then crack the amulet, and then you can get an extra card to play with.
Yeah.
I don't know. There are a lot of good talisman and amulets that they released recently, so I just think those are worth taking a look at and seeing if they fit into your lists. So
I do have one other sleeper card, and I feel like I need to point out one weird, since we're real card game judges here, I feel like I do need to point out one weird, should have checked the text and read it, card per game. Sleeper card number 2, Gambler's Gloves. Because it does not only affect your own dice rolls.
Yeah.
You can make somebody else go again and re-roll one of their die, which is really great against KO, where they only have a 33% chance of hitting that 5 or a 6. If they hit it, you can Gambler's Gloves their roll and make them re-roll it. And so
they roll a 6 on a Rolling Thunder. I don't know if they run that card, but it also synergizes with their the fist that they run, the fist item. If they roll like a 5 or a 6, they can get +1, and they can also get the buff on Rolling Thunder, make them re-roll that, and help them roll low. But I feel like it's maybe better used on the actual attacks so that they don't have a Command and Conquer coming into you for like 12.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But definitely, if you feel like you have the sideboard slots available, just throw Gambler Gloves in there. You'll just run into a KO randomly, and you'll be happy you had them.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll just it'll completely change your life, hopefully. Or they'll just roll 6 again.
Or you think somebody's playing like Prism Crazy Brews or something like that, something weird. or old him with like Sledge and with Crazy Brews or something like that. I don't know. Just make them re-roll that die.
Absolutely. All right. So I think I'm pretty excited for skirmish season. Obviously Cold Foil Young Heroes, obviously going to show up for that. Cold Foil Copper tokens for the Kasai player might as well be selling catnip. So I'm pretty excited.
That's the first Cold Foil token they've released, actually.
Oh, really?
Not
including weapons and heroes.
The allies.
Oh yeah, the ally. Yeah, but they're allies are weird. Well, speaking of young heroes, and cold foils and Cold Foil Young Heroes, it seems like New Jersey's about to get musical. With a new Bard class, and honestly, the second gimmickiest hero they've ever printed behind Gemkeeper.
Oh yeah. I was gonna say, are you sure it's not the first gimmickiest? But that's a fair point. Yeah.
I mean, who has the time to get the PSA 10 generics?
I'm telling you, man, somebody out there is starting a collection. They're going to come in with a huge custom made box to hold all of their PSA 10s. We're going to have
It's just Rudy.
hired security all next to them with their huge deck box worth like $1 million of PSA 10 slabs.
Somehow great. Rudy convinced them to print a card that only he would ever be able to build a deck for. So.
Yeah.
So I don't know. How do you feel about this new Bard hero? Is it too much of a gimmick? Is it too exclusive? Do you think it's a good thing?
I think it's not going to be legal at all. I mean, as funny as it is to talk about the rules play around it and all that stuff, I think it's just going to be a collector's thing. I don't understand how they could ever like. I don't understand you could ever seriously think that would be like fine. Like to play for real.
Yeah.
Like it just or UPF. Like that's the only thing I can think of is like UPF, everybody's playing with the same sleeves. Oh no, that'd actually be worse. In UPF, it's like I think it's such a it'd be no, not UPF. I'm sorry. What I meant to say was PvE. The Bard class in PvE where everybody shares the same deck would be interesting. And it might be kind of like a default character used to like initiate the PvE. Because it seems like kind of one of those like static effects things that you would include, you know, in a casual like format for Magic, like Wizard's Tower, where you have one pile in the middle everyone draws from, right? So maybe that's what the Bard is potentially.
So the real problem I have with this card is that it's gross. And so okay, so hear me out. And I don't mean gross in the way that people use it online. I mean, like physically, this card is disgusting. Because, you know, your deck is going to get shuffled with somebody else's deck, right? And especially in UPF, there's 4 decks. They're all getting shuffled together. I mean, I know you've definitely picked up somebody else's deck before and just been like, what the hell's on your sleeves? Like, how did this get here? So what's happening with a Yorick player is that their sleeves are suddenly turning into this cesspool of every game they have ever played. They are touching all these dirty sleeves and they never go away. So the next game they play, they're now cross-contaminating that game with the game they played before. And it's just going to get worse until like, you're like, where'd you get these like furry lime green sleeves for your Bard? This is cool. And so that's my main problem is like, I don't know if you've ever seen like a CEDH player in Magic, for whatever reason, there's always grime on their sleeves. And I feel like it's going to get all over.
It's because they play test like 10 times. They play like 10 times over. They can play 10 games in 20 minutes, you know?
Like I'm super, so I'm a musician. I'm stoked for a Bard class. Yeah. And it's so much play testing. It's like your Yorick deck is going to get shuffled with everyone's gross deck in history ever. And so
that's
you know
you
what?
Just play with no sleeves.
Like, can you imagine? I think it's funny. Like, you play with no sleeves. That's way better.
Yeah, the whole your physical card shuffling in between everyone else's sleeves.
I feel like if you're a Yorick player, you need to get what they call character sleeves, the like triple sleeve, where it's like a hard case that goes on the outside of your double sleeve cards.
Jeez.
So I don't know. I mean, obviously, I'm a little bit joking. And as a musician, I'm really stoked that they're bringing Bard as a class. Like I was a big EverQuest player back in the day, and I enjoyed playing Bard. But I don't know. Like this is such a weird deck. This is a weird card.
You know what this reminds me of, though? This is like Shared Fate, the enchantment or Magic.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's a 5-mana enchantment that says if you would draw a card instead, exile the top card of an opponent's deck face down. You may look at it, and then you may play cards from there instead.
I think that's fine though, because they're only touching one card.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to make it as close of a comparison as possible.
No, but you're right. Yeah, like Shared Fate, absolutely, or like, or even like, there's like that Magic card, Worst Fears, where your opponent like controls your deck and everything for whole. Like, I mean, there's several cards like this, like Mindslaver and Magic.
Notably.
But it's like one of the worst things that can happen to you in any game. And like, you know, you hand like whatever 3 cards are in your hand, you hand to somebody else, and you're like, oh, this is kind of weird. But now we're doing that with everything.
Yeah.
I don't know.
This is I think like I said, it's either going to be for some kind of where like everyone agrees like this is just going to be a combined deck kind of game and you play PvE, or this is just going to be a gimmicky promo, right? Like a sought after card. I think that's all it is going to be, or just something commemorative, because also this is the first hero with flavor text on the bottom, if you've not noticed.
Yeah, he's got a song, and like the first two verses rhyme, and then it really comes off the comes off the rails. And
I actually didn't read it. I just saw that it was italicized. I'm like, oh, flavor text.
Yeah, it's a story of legend is said to be told. The dawn of a new age, a sight to behold. From all corners of Wraith, heroes they came. The common language they spoke was that of great games. So it does finish with a typical rhyme scheme. Great games, the common language. I don't know if you play Bard, wash your hands. I think that's what I'm saying.
I can't imagine this being for anything else other than the PvE though. But yeah.
So how much a secondary market? How much do you think this card's going to go for?
At first, when everyone's just trying to get a little bit of extra money for their trip to New Jersey, probably $40, $50.
Yeah, I'd pay $40-$50 for one of these.
Yeah, and then when they announce PvE for sure, like with the new set release, they'll probably be a little bit more. Or they'll release a non-cold foil version in the set, like as a mythic or something, like a majestic. Kind of just like not really that playable in CC, but it's like, they included a majestic adult hero in a set with just 2 other majestic young heroes. They'll probably just do like a majestic young hero in a set made for CC or, whatever else. It could be in the next set, non-foil.
Well, it's interesting now that you say that, the gears are turning in my brain. So here's this gross card with a mechanic that doesn't make sense. That is being given out on the same day that the pre-release of a new set is happening. Perhaps there's some PvE on the horizon.
Perhaps.
I don't know. That's quite weird.
Maybe you play against the Bard. Maybe the Bard, you start the game with the Bard, and the Bard tells the tale of the heroes, and the heroes have to band together and then explain that that's probably what it is. The Bard tells the story of the heroes, and the heroes do their feats by attacking and playing items and doing this and that. That just sounds kind of like what would happen. I don't know.
Yeah. Weird.
Interesting.
All right, so anyway, if you want to offload one of these for $40, you can contact me on Twitter at Deej1088.
Yeah, or go to Pro Tour and get one. I don't think you have to attend a Pro Tour. I think you just have to buy a package and you get one. You don't have to be like invited to the Pro Tour. You can go to the calling there and get one of them just by buying a package.
I did see that. And speaking of the packages, these are kind of nice, especially compared to like Matt, did you ever go to like a Magic the Gathering Grand Prix or like a Pro Tour or anything where they had these package events?
Yeah, but I don't know if I bought any playmat package. The one I remember last going to, I've been to 2 GPs, by the way. And the one I went to that I bought a package at, I believe, was it was Orlando, but it was 2017, I think. And I bought the Commander package. They came with like a deck box and tickets to enter the Commander casual, like on-demand games. And I don't think I got a playmat. I think I probably got like promos or something. But yeah, they had like the packages with the GP event or the big side event one where they give you a playmat and like a bunch of tickets. But I wasn't sure how many events I'd be playing that evening, so I didn't really buy any tickets.
Yeah, that's reasonable. I mean, Pro Tour or Grand Prix Miami in 2015, I think was like the last really big trading card event I went to. And like my $60 package included a playmat I forget the name of the card.
Beach one?
It's the one with the surfing goblin from Khans of Tarkir.
Oh yeah, I know that one. Yeah.
And then two tickets for side events. And I don't know, this seems like a significantly better deal than any Magic GP I've gone to. In terms of what they're handing out.
The Calling Nationals that I went to in Orlando, that was a great deal. I mean, they gave you a Pulse of Eisenloft playmat with a with Lady Barthamont promo, Channel Fireball deck box, and your tickets to enter to drafts. And if you bought like the side event package, you got the Fulminate playmat instead.
Yeah.
Those are really good arts. I mean, they're not like crazy. They're not like anything crazy expensive or anything, but they're nice, you know?
Yeah. I will say I do have, and I know I've brought this up to a few people who have asked me. I've judged a couple pro quests, like very heavily involved in trading card judging, and people are asking me, Doug, are you going to judge the Pro Tour? Number one, don't want to go to New Jersey, but it's flesh and blood, so I can ignore where I'm at. However, are you aware that so Channel Fireball actually, I know that they have a reputation of undercompensating judges compared to like SCG or just straight up from the card game itself. But for whatever reason, they're having such a difficult time staffing this event that they have actually opened up the judging to level 0 judges or rules advisors, which is really fascinating to me.
That is.
You would think that they would up the compensation just to, there's not a lot of judges for this game, right? There's like very few level 2s, but I believe the staffing applications closed today. So maybe there'll be some sort of change in what's going on, but it's so interesting.
Maybe I'll throw my hat in there. Throw my hat in the box. We'll see.
Yeah, they're offering it's like $150 a day compensation plus if you end up judging all 3 days, it's like 6 boxes. So it's not terrible.
Wow,
it's just incredible. Because flights are so expensive right now. You end up it ends up costing you money to judge the Pro Tour.
No, that's not good.
Which isn't great. Obviously, if you're in New England or like the East Coast of the United States, anywhere north of Georgia, that's like nowhere near as terrible as it is.
Well, they give you, you said $150 a day.
Plus a box of Everfest and a box of Monarch.
Per day.
Per day, yes.
Yeah, but additionally, you have judge promos provided by LSS, right? And playmats?
Yeah.
Okay, so
presumably. I think they haven't announced them yet.
Well, I gotta imagine they have promos and playmats, but you're right. I think that's kind of more than break even, right? If you end up judging all 3 days, that's $450. That pays for your ticket, right?
Yeah.
Probably a few boxes. That's enough for the rest of your evening, like the rest of your the 3 days. Yeah, I don't know. Seems all right. I've never judged an event yet. And for Magic either. I've been a judge since September, and I just haven't had an opportunity to. I've been trying to talk to I've talked to stores before, and been like, hey, keep me in mind. Like the guys at Prodigy, they know my contact info, but they already have Michael that judges over there as well, and they have. I don't know about how you want to play, but I've talked to Vinny before very briefly. So I don't know. Maybe I need to give them my contact info, and maybe I can go judge something down there one of these days.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I need to work on getting my Flesh and Blood judge test passed as well, so I can actually start judging those.
Yeah, I find that with most Magic judging that I do, because there really aren't Magic events anymore. At least not the way there used to be. They still pop up here and there. But I've found that most Magic judging I do is kind of like me playing EDH in a corner while other people play Modern.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Definitely after doing some pro quests and some stricter, higher rule stuff for Flesh and Blood, it'd be cool to do it with Magic. But yeah, it's quite interesting. And so hopefully they can kind of figure this out. So there's actually 2 more days still to sign up to judge Pro Tour New Jersey. So I'm not entirely out. I've got 48 hours to convince myself. So yeah, 12-hour shifts. They emphasize physical labor on every single thing. So it's really interesting. They're not just trying to judge. They are trying to absolutely staff this at every single level.
I think it's because they have prize wall merch to handle. They have the sign up booths to manage with the boxes of product and the computers and stuff. Walking around, setting out slips and the meetup signs and stuff. The meeting points, setting all of those up. Probably that's the extent of it, but I'm sure they need to include it in the description.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I can't imagine it's that much more physical. Like, I don't know. The merchants set up their tables, right?
Well, yeah, absolutely. So there is one other thing. If you are headed to Pro Tour New Jersey, here's the biggest life tip I will give you. And I know another Flesh and Pod actually is another Flesh and Blood podcast where I heard this tip for the first time in my life. It absolutely blew my mind. If you are searching for flights or hotels to go somewhere, do it in an incognito window.
Yes.
Because those companies are evil. They will see that you're looking for flights there and they will slowly increase your prices. And you can actually do this with your regular cookies and then open up an incognito window on another device and you'll be like, why is this so much cheaper? Because they know that you are looking for it and they are going to trick you into thinking it's selling out and prices have to go higher when really they're struggling to fill up flights. So definitely do that. See how cheap you can get up there for. It's going to be a crazy event. It seems like even if you're just going to play in the calling, just to be a part of it and to hang around and then like listen to people cheer and constantly ask the professor for his autograph, it sounds great.
Oh, man.
And then
yeah, I remember a few years ago, you probably could have seen, Rudy or the professor at an event or something. Rudy actually doesn't go to any events anymore, but you could have seen them at an event and then maybe like casually walked up to them to greet them. There might have been a little bit of a crowd, but you probably could have, greeted them. You probably still can. I just think that their popularity skyrocketed a lot. So, they'd kind of be like the main attraction for like a table or something, like a special table to go check out and meet and talk to them,
yeah.
And I actually saw Rudy. I didn't walk up to him and talk to him, but I saw Rudy at the GP, the last GP I went to in 2018. I think it was 2019, maybe. It was a Magic Fest. It was Orlando, and he was there. Yeah, he said he would be there, and he was talking to like a big group of people. But I didn't want to just try to go over there and jam my way in and say anything. I was kind of waiting with my buddies who weren't like the greatest fans of his either. So I was kind of just waiting for my next round to start because I think I was playing some Legacy.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if I run into him, I'll talk to him in his own voice.
Hey, what's up, Rudy? Time for another box opening.
It's you. Oh, you too. So the other thing and the last thing I wanted to touch on is this is something we were talking about in the pre-show and we couldn't find a straight answer on it anywhere. It took us a lot of research and we actually got there. And I didn't realize this. And a PTI is different from a Pro Tour invite, which is insane to me. Not really insane. Like just I can see how I was easily misled. And so it's really interesting, the breakdown of PTIs. And you were really the one to bring this to my attention and clarify it for me. So Matt, why don't you break this down for us?
Yeah, it's not totally.
Yeah, just go ahead.
Yeah, it's not totally clear how these things work, but as far as like it's not, the information is not like publicly out there. Like if you just attend or sign up for a ProQuest or attend or sign up for RTN, the info is not like clearly there. But as far as like your Pro Tour invite you receive for topping a ProQuest, those Pro Tour invites are not the same as a professional tournament invite, which is the actual acronym for the PTI. The Pro Tour invite, if for some reason it being shortened is different, is only good for that season of the Pro Tour, right? So we are in season 1 of ProQuest. They've already concluded, and now we are in the lull before the Pro Tour. So those invites handed out during ProQuest season are going to be ProQuest season 1 are valid for Pro Tour 1. Now, after Pro Tour, we have the following ProQuest season 2, and those will be valid for Pro Tour 2. Pro Tour 2 would be in France, though. So if you are in the States, you have no intention of flying internationally, and you top a Pro Tour, if you top a ProQuest here in the States, ProQuest 2 in the States, that PTI is only valid for France. So, I mean, I don't know what this means. I think for judges, something to be like aware of is, people maybe trying to resolve some sort of like prize splitting in the final two tables. We were discussing that, like, what would happen. Me and a couple of us, we were talking about that after Armory last night. Like, what would happen if you wanted to get first place at a ProQuest number 2, but the guy you would beat or play against actually wants the PTI and they intend to go to France, but you don't, right? But you want the prizing, right? Could try to hustle a way to like, get the prizing, but also like let that guy technically win. I don't know. It's weird stuff, Like, I guess it'd only be possible if you knew the person. They'd be willing to take the win and then also just let you have the prizing. I don't know. It's if you win, I don't know. It's kind of one of those weird things. I was just kind of like, what's the word for it? I don't know. Conspiring, maybe,
Oh, yeah. Like I see what you're saying, though, where you kind of like set it up to like throw somebody else into a pro tour or whatever.
Correct. Yeah. But also still win, right? Still win that match, but throw the PTI. Because if you win, you can't pass that PTI down.
Yeah.
As far as I know, could you pass that PTI down?
I think if you are already qualified, you can pass it down to second place.
Right. Correct. But if you're not, you can't. That's the problem. So that's why I was saying, like, maybe there'd be some way to work around that, but it'd be tough if you don't know the person. Is what I
know they have the buying and selling program, but I don't know if that just exclusively applies to PTIs or if it can also apply
buying
to
and selling
tokens.
Don't they prohibit that?
No, they don't. They actually, I don't know if you saw this. So they published a list of everybody invited to the Pro Tour.
I did see that.
And there was a list of people who bought them. So there's just a list of shame.
And I did notice that. That's very funny. And I thought that, though, they only have it marked as a transfer, meaning, though, you could gift the PTI. Right. But I don't know if they have anything against you announcing that you've sold the PTI. Like, I bought this PTI or I sold my PTI,
I'm sure like one of those 13 people saved someone's life and they were like, how do I repay you? Here's this PTI people are paying thousands of dollars for. But everybody else bought one. So you can print out that list and put it in your deck box.
Yeah, I'd look for the list, be like, oh, free win, thank God.
All right. Or even just get into their head.
Yeah. Oh, I heard you bought that PTI. Didn't do too good in ProQuest, huh?
Look at all these copper tokens.
Too bad I won 3 of them.
All right.
Yeah. It's odd. And then PTIs are from Road to Nationals only and Battle Hardens or a calling, winning a calling. Those are valid for they're non-expiring. They're valid for any professional level tournament.
Huh. Right on.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just odd that they don't really delve into that too much. They don't really explain those points the way they work.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe I will go to the Pro Tour. Maybe I won't. I'm still thinking about it. It just seems like cool. It'll be a super cool story. Obviously, it's super inconvenient to like go to New Jersey. But it'll be a cool story to tell people. I was there. I was at the first Pro Tour, back before it was sold to Wizards of the Coast. So
Really?
I don't know. No. I mean, I'm joking. That's like just the worst case scenario of what could happen in this card game. So
getting sold to Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah, I don't know.
That would be not good. Not good.
Cool. So I'm looking forward to it. I think we covered everything we need to cover. Matt, do you have any final thoughts?
Final thoughts. Interesting. Well, I'm excited for the Armory for next month. How about you, Mr. Prism Player?
Oh, so that's what's really interesting, right? Is like this month has been, you want an Armory? It's like, here's a $10 cold foil that no one's ever going to want. But next month, if you win an Armory, you can like eat for a week.
Yeah. I think at first, if you're trying to sell these things, just probably do it immediately. There are going to be a lot of armories. A lot of people getting these. I think there's a lot of them too. They think there's like 4 of each pitch. I think there's like 12.
Yeah.
Maybe more. So like they're going to be giving multiples out per day.
Oh, it's so great.
So that's going to be good. Like, I don't think you need to necessarily get first to win them. And plus, the store can just do whatever they want. Just like raffle them off or whatever. I don't know. That'd be pretty good.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's going to be pretty sweet.
And the mat's so sweet. Shimmers used to be exclusive to Judge mats. Obviously, my Shimmers playmat futures investments in shambles, but
I don't think so. It's still Shimmers. Not as much as it was a month ago. But yeah, it's
yeah, I'm still seeing them sell for like $150 to $200 American, so it's not too bad. Oh, right on.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Still playing Viscerai. I don't know if I'll change. I've been testing a little Brood out, but that's about it for me. I haven't really tried any other new decks.
Yeah. Maybe I need to pick up. I have been slowly building Viscerai. I need somebody to trade me some combination of like Grasp of Arknight, Spellbound Creepers. Like I'm trying to trade for the 2 last pieces of equipment. I need to finish Viscerai.
Just those 2?
Just those 2.
Okay. Well, I don't have extras of those. I thought I remember somebody saying they opened a Grasp. I'm trying to remember who that was.
No, I don't know. I'll have to look in the old South Florida Flesh and Blood trade Discord.
Yeah. You want to check that out. I think someone did open a Grasp. So Spellbound Creepers should be easy enough to find. But yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, nice.
Right on.
I'd be happy to see you play a little Vis.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, Runeblade's cool. I mean, I play Spellblade in almost everything. It's that red mage life.
Oh yeah.
So
my legacy deck's Mono Red Burn, so a little arcane damage to the face. But yeah, it was great talking. This was a good podcast. We talked a little Blitz and talked a little ProQuest and skirmish season.
Right on. And I think that does it for episode 2 of the Pitch Stack podcast. We'll see you next week as we talk about whatever we come up with and whatever happens. As we inch closer to the dual decks, we can talk about how to get more of your LGS on board with Flesh and Blood as you slowly stamp out competitive Magic, one footstep at a time. So we'll see you next week.
See you guys next week.